Well, quite the weekend. And I think it's fair to say, with only the 10 games on, but there's been goals, red cards, and just howlers. I think it's probably fair to say. But hello, everybody. Welcome back to 4 Tier Fever. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all have had a great week. Thanks for joining us again. We're back for another week. It has been the international week for most in the EFL, with the lack of games in League One in particular yesterday. Championship was completely off at all. But 10 games in League Two. Salford was not one of them. But we're joined by Jake, as mentioned, and we're joined back again with Luke, whose side did play. And the last time, obviously, both Luke and Jake met was in the build-up to that Salford MK game, in which Jake got the upper hand in that one. So, fellas, hello, how are we?
I knew that mention was coming. I knew that was
got to be done.
Oh, I'm still not happy about that game. But we move. I'm happy again now. We got our results. So all is good.
Yeah, it's nice to have a stress-free Saturday again without having football even to look forward to on the Monday. But luckily that went the right way. So nice to have a win.
Yeah, at least you had that win just to sort of settle you down, obviously, for the fact that you've had no football this weekend. In fact, you're still living on a win until, next week or whenever your next play will be next week. Right, so we'll kick on to it because, like I said, really interesting weekend for the games that did play. Also, I did mention that Salford didn't play. Their game against Fleet was postponed for international call-up. Same with Tranmere against AFC Wimbledon. That game didn't take place. But the games did take place. Really interesting, as I mentioned. We'll start with the top of the table clash, as it sort of were. Doncaster against Gillingham. I mean, we knew that Gillingham were coming into the game as the league leaders. They had a really good start to the season, picking up 10 points out of a possible 12 in their first 4. So they've started really strong. Doncaster has started pretty strong as well. With a few wins, only losing to Newport in that time. But it was Donny that got the upper hand. It didn't look the best of games on paper, if I'm going to be honest. But, I mean, once you've got the experience of Billy Sharp and his know-how in front of goal, I don't think it needs to be. He took his goal really well. I think Donny, probably had the better of the chances looking at it. I think hit the bar. I think they had a couple of rebound shots in which was well defended by Gills, actually. But I didn't see much threat from Gillingham. And if I'm going to be honest, it looked like Doncaster probably deserved it just on the whole, which carries on their unbeaten home record dating back to last year. They've got a terrific home record, by the way. But we'll start with you, Luke. We knew that Doncaster were coming into this season as definitely promotion contenders, but arguably maybe even title contenders as well, with the fact that how they finished last year and how Grant McCann really wants to build. But, I mean, Billy Sharp has started life back at Doncaster brilliantly, hasn't he? And we've seen a few, not by a lot of people, but we've sort of seen a few that have maybe sort of rubbed him out because we knew that they had goals throughout the team with the likes of Luke Molyneux and Joe Ironside. How important is that experience to someone like Doncaster for Grant McCann? Is someone like Billy Sharp is? I mean, like I said there, he took his goal really well yesterday.
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's crucial, to be fair. I mean, you look at, we've said this is a top of the table clash straight away, and you've essentially got two top quality teams cancelling each other out. It took one moment of quality, and that is your experienced man. That is Billy Sharp, and that's what he does. I think he is going to score a lot of goals than this season. He already is, so that's a pretty safe thing to assume. But if they keep him fit, there's no reason they can't stay up there and keep pushing with him up front. I mean, why not?
Yeah, of course, and that's what good teams do. You may not be playing maybe the best, but you just need that little bit of moment. That one moment of just pure, technique, quality to win you a game, and that's what they've done. It was really good build up to that goal. I don't think the build up actually gets a lot of credit it maybe deserves. But of course, we all look at the finish from Billy Sharp. We all know experienced EFL frontman playing for some big clubs in the EFL. We know he's a goal threat, and even at his age now, where maybe he's kicking on, he's entering the arguably the final stages of his career of playing. he can still do the business, and he certainly did that yesterday. Jake, a quick one on Gillingham. Obviously, their unbeaten run to the start of the season now over. Couple of moments, but if I'm going to be honest, it didn't really look like threatening a great deal. But I think, as I mentioned with Donny's home form, it was always going to be a difficult place to come if we're looking back from last season as well. But other than yesterday, how big is maybe like their sort of form, like early on in the season, big for their promotion credentials?
Yeah, it's a big performance by Doncaster and big that they've obviously kept that home form going. It's been a good start by Gillingham, but yesterday just almost looked like last season when you look at the stats. Not many shots, didn't look too threatening going forward. They'll want to iron that out because we've seen in games like Carlisle where they actually can score goals. So hopefully they bounce back next week.
Yeah, I don't think there's really too much you can argue with that. I didn't think they were really that threatening. Couple of half chances, but nothing to really test Donny's defence or goalkeeper. But I think that's also a big credit to Donny. I think at times they look like they defended pretty well, and like I said, I think they maybe could have had another. I think they could have won that a little bit more than what they did, but it's a great win for them, and it obviously moves them top of the table. So Grant McCann be really pleased. A really good start to the season for them. There's not really much more to talk about that game, but great win for Donny. But I do agree that 5 games in, you sort of get an idea of where teams are going to be, and it certainly looks like that's where Gillingham will be. Not disparaging at the start of the season, in fact, because they've clearly been impressive. So that's that game. I do want to touch on. There's quite a bit to talk about this one. I do want to go to Barrow Swindon. I mean, I don't really know how you can describe it. It looks like a really bizarre. I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think about it. But basically, to summarise what happened, I mean, obviously Barrow took the lead. Really nice goal from Jack Garner. It's got to be said. Really delightful finish. And then just before half time, you see Paul Farman rushing out of his goal. They don't deal with it very well, Barrow, and the Swindon players tried to sort of lob him and find the back of the net. Didn't happen. It went over the bar, but it did come off Farman's hand. And obviously, in the law, in the letter of the law, that's a red card. But obviously, Barrow down to 10. And the worrying concern is they didn't have a goalkeeper on the bench. So up stepped Rory Feely, the 27-year-old centre half who came in. I've got to say this now. Massive props to him. I was saying it to obviously you guys in the chat. It takes some balls, I think, to step up and be a goalie when you don't have another one named to the bench. But to his credit, he was not tested. Really, he had one chance from Harry Smith from that free kick in which he had to push around the post. But he looked really comfortable. And we'll get on to Swindon because, in fact, we'll do a segment on a little bit on Swindon. But I just want to talk about Barrow really quick, Luke. I mean, 1-0 up for most of the game to concede late in the 98th minute. With an outfielder in goal, it must be a sucker punch. But I think you look at Rory Feely in particular. That's a man that's got to take a hell of a lot of credit, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That is an incredibly difficult job to do, especially when you're not trained to be able to play in goal. It's not like, oh, I'm like a striker, I'm going to go play fullback for a game. There are still fundamentals that can be the same. With goalkeeping, it is entirely different. So to go in there for that long and only concede one right at the very end, that's outstanding. I do also want to give a bit more credit to that goal because obviously the goalkeeping situation has kind of taken over that game. But that first goal, just the audacity, that chip, it was such intelligent gameplay, and I love that. It was a brilliant goal. Absolutely
delightful. It's probably my favourite goal from yesterday, and that says a lot because of David McGoldrick's first goal. But we'll get into that. We'll touch on Swindon because I think there's quite a bit to talk about. If I'm a Swindon fan, looking at that, I think even with their goal in the last minute from Dan Butterworth, I would be nothing short of embarrassed by that. It's taken up until the 98th minute to equalise. Harry Smith has just assaulted someone. Clear as day red card. It is a disgusting elbow. He'll probably get a 3-game ban, but he should be more. I think it's horrendous. And what I've seen of Swindon, not just this game, but what I've seen from Swindon so far, they're still without a win. I don't see an identity. I don't see what they're trying to do. I don't really know what their game plan is. And I think seeing what Mark Kennedy has had to say after that, with some of the comments that he's made from that game, my head, if I was a Swindon, my head would be on Mars. That's unacceptable. I'm sorry. You maybe do look at it that maybe a draw has maybe papered some cracks. But again, they've got a defender in goal for way over an hour. The fact they've only tested him really once is not on. Is not on, and I think it says a hell of a lot about Swindon. And I sort of thought they'd be in for a challenge this year. I thought they'd be a bit better, because I did see some of the players I brought and think, oh yeah, maybe he could, work, and he looks a decent addition. But 5 games in now, they still haven't won. They've conceded quite a few, and the fact that they're not winning games, that they're dropping points in the manner they have done, especially yesterday. I just think it's really poor from them, and I think there's massive concerns over Swindon Town at the minute. Jack, I'm not sure if you agree with that, but yeah, I'm maybe more concerned at them than maybe the likes of. Sounds weird, but I'm obviously Morecambe at them. In fact, no, because Morecambe have their own issues, but I've got maybe more concerns with them than maybe a hell of a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Their performances this season have been pretty dire. Drawing to teams like Crewe, who haven't scored yet, getting beat heavily by Walsall at home. It's a far from ideal start. And when you look to their standings on paper, they all look pretty decent. And you think maybe they'll improve on last season, which was obviously their lowest position in their history. And it looks like it's going to get even worse for them this season. I don't know if Mark Kennedy's the right man for them. I've seen a lot of fans already question some of his decisions, so it doesn't look too good so far.
I was already quite about the appointment when they made it. If I'm going to be honest, he was clearly not their first choice, because they did go out and try and get some others. I remember, I think they tried for Dean Brennan at Barnet, and that didn't happen. I think they looked at a couple of names I remember being mentioned. He was clearly not their first choice. From what I read, I think it sort of feels like that way what he did at Lincoln as well. I think just more so that it got results to a certain extent, but the style was just not there at all. I'm really questioning him already after 5 games. I don't think it'll be long at all. He needs to turn it around, and he needs to really turn it around quite quickly, because at the minute, if this carries on, I don't think he'll be here by next month. I really don't. I think at the minute, even maybe more so than maybe John Doolan at Accrington. I think he's the most under pressure manager in League Two at this moment in time. That's just my opinion, but I mean, there's a salvage to point at the end, but I don't think it tells the story. They were a bit of a joke, I think yesterday, truth be told. But yeah, so there's that. Yeah, I don't think there's no more to say, but yeah, gutting on Barrow's side at the end with Feely conceding, right? Yeah, I'd have loved him to have kept a clean sheet. Absolutely loved it, but yeah, really unlucky. It was decent outfit. Maybe a goalkeeper saves that, but that's just being really critical. I'm not taking anything away from Feely there. Brave man. So there's that one. We'll move on to I think a game that's maybe got a little bit of attention between the two teams in Bradford and Carlisle. I think we all know that those two, I think in recent years, have had a little bit of history. Obviously, they met a couple of years ago in the playoffs. Carlisle got the upper hand on that. And if you've noticed it on social media, with their fans in particular, there's been a hell of a lot of back and forth ever since. Quite a lot. I'm not sure. I think some of it's a bit weird. I'm going to be perfectly honest. But sort of this, I say sort of rivalry. I think it has been made like a sort of rivalry. But it was Bradford that got the upper hand on it, winning 2-1. I mean, you've got the goals of Andy Cook. You've always got a chance. And another two for him yesterday, two really well taken goals. That first one in particular capitalised on a Carlisle mistake, and Cook, he's always just going to be there to finish. Just he doesn't need a second invitation. Same with the other one. You can maybe question Harry Lewis, and thought it looked like he had an okay game. Looking at it, he did get a hand to it, but not enough to keep it out. But obviously, Carlisle did equalise quite early on in the second half. It's a moment that Sam Walker in the Bradford goal will not want to see again. It's a complete howler. But it looks like Bradford on paper deserved to win, probably deserved to have scored a few more. I mean, Carlisle had the chance as well. Charlie White had a few, but not really testing the keeper. I think it's more of a pretty good Bradford result. I think in terms of the chances, they clearly had the better. And it was important for them to return to winning ways after losing to us last week. Still quite happy about. But no, big win for Bradford. Luke, what have you sort of made of him so far? Five games in. Is this maybe a different Bradford side to maybe in recent years? I mean, it's still quite early on to say, because we know that Bradford have like a little bit of a history of not really capitalising on it and have sort of finished the season quite. Although last year they ended the season really well and just missed out on the plus. But is this maybe a different Bradford side to what you've seen it so far?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced at the minute. I know they've had the results to get them up the right end of the table, which is obviously the most important thing at the end of the day. But, looking back at some of the chances that Carlisle had, I was sat there thinking they should have scored, and they should have scored that one as well. And they just didn't finish them off. I think that game could have gone either way. If I'm being honest, I think a better team punishes them. Obviously, Bradford do have goals in them. There's no denying that. They'll score plenty of goals this season. They've got Cook up front. They can score from multiple areas of the pitch. But defensively, I'm not necessarily convinced just yet, to be honest.
That seems fair. I think I looked at Bradford last week. I mean, I've seen Bradford twice already because we've played them obviously in the Cup as well. They were obviously much better in the Cup game, I thought. They attacked us a lot more, but even then we weren't really tested. We had a couple of ones in which we cleared off the line, but other than that, we weren't really tested. They didn't test us at all, really, in the league game. They had one chance because of a keeper blunder and they scored it. I've not been impressed by Bradford for quite a while. Like, this is against us, by the way. I mean, league table obviously says otherwise, but I feel like every time we play Bradford in particular, they're never really that great. If I'm gonna be perfectly honest, obviously it's different to obviously what they do against the other teams and against us, of course, because maybe it just catches us on an off day. But it's sort of this cycle with Bradford. I think we've sort of been used to seeing now. They've been in League Two for quite a long time now. The stature of the club, I think maybe the size that they shouldn't be in this league. Not a chance. With the tendencies they get, with the squad they've got, it's a solid squad. I do question if it's good enough to go all the way at the minute, if I'm going to be honest. But there's some good players in that squad. They're going to be well drilled, I think, definitely under Alexander. I've said this in recent weeks. They've got a couple of injuries as well as it is in the minute. But I think once they're back, I think they'll be quite solid. And there was quite a lot of good things to take from that. But I think overall, I think you look at it, 5 games played, 10 points collected. I think it's been a pretty solid start to the season, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, they obviously beat MK on the opening day, and they picked up a couple of other wins as well, just their only defeat so far coming against us. But I think they've had a solid start, and I think probably they probably just edged it yesterday. Just a quick note on Carlisle. Not been the best of starts at all to the season. 5 games gone, they're 22nd in the table, just the 1 win this year. They've lost the other 4 without a manager still. There's a couple of names going around, but nothing really concrete at the minute. I think disappointment's an understatement with maybe what has maybe been expected from Carlisle so far. I think they're certainly one of the people's favourites to have a pretty good season. Not really up there as maybe the likes of maybe MK Dons or a Notts County. But, with the right backing of the squad, certainly the the capability to be up there. Still plenty of time, granted, but 5 games in, it's been far from ideal. The start, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a really disappointing start because I think we all had them in and around the playoffs in our predictions, and obviously they had a disappointing start. Of changed manager. It's going to be interesting to see who they get in and what improvement they have because they're going to need a big impact to turn the season around. It's still early, but it just doesn't look good and promising with heavy losing culture at the club. So it'd be really interesting to see where they go.
And I think you've just mentioned it there, the heavy losing culture. The losing culture in particular from last year in League One. We all know that they absolutely struggled. They had a really tough time in League One last year. And I've always been slightly under the impression that this could carry on into League Two if they weren't careful. It sort of have. If I'm going to be honest, I think the next managerial appointment is key. There's some interesting names going around, but like I said, nothing really concrete at the minute. But I think they might try and go for someone ambitious. I think they've really got to. I think this squad is very capable of doing pretty well this year. But for one reason or another, they have not started well at all. I mean, the proof's in the pudding after 5 games. In fact, they've only won 1, lost the other 4. Obviously losing. There've been some heavy defeats as well. Losing 3-0 at MK, losing 4-1 at Gillingham. You know, there've been a couple of hidings in there as well, and at times they've not really looked like a threat. Like I said, I thought the Paul Simpson dismissal was probably the right one. I think it probably should have been done sooner, if I'm going to be honest. As much as he's maybe a club legend, I think they needed a refresh at managerial level, and I think it sort of paid the price to a certain extent. They had chances yesterday. They scored that goal with that absolute mess from Sam Walker, which is really unlike him. You know, he's a solid keeper as it is, but it didn't look like. I think in terms of chances, I don't really. They needed to be more ruthless, and that was one thing that they just weren't yesterday. But taking nothing away from Bradford, really good win for them, and you know there'd be a lot of happy Bradford fans, especially with this sort of rivalry. I feel like it has turned into a little bit of a rivalry from the past. It's quite interesting, but a tad bit weird. I can't lie. But no, it's a good win for them, and it carries on there. Pretty decent start to the season. We'll move on. We'll do our game away at Chesterfield. It's a fixture I was looking forward to at the start of the year. You know, I quite like playing Chesterfield, especially away. Probably because we have a pretty decent record at their place. Won our last 3 visits there, but we lost 2-1. But I honestly don't think the result told the entire story. I thought for large parts of that game, I thought we were the better team. I thought we moved the ball around really well. I thought we were much more sharper than them. It took them a bit of time to get going. We've eventually lost the game on 2 really poor goals, and they are poor. The first one from a free kick on the left-hand side, it's beaten right as near post. I'm looking at him again for that, and not just him. I do sympathise a little bit with the defence as well, because overall that was a mess. But ultimately, I think Wright's got to take it on the chin again. It's another mistake from him, and I'll get on to Jordan Wright because it's an interesting one. The second one is, truth be told, I don't know what Rodgers is doing. It's literally just fallen to him. I feel like he got it in a bit of a tangle, but it's weird because it feels like he still had time to clear it. It won't like they were just straight on him in a flash. He had a good 3-4 seconds with him before he was dispossessed by Grigg, straight to Markande. He literally boots that. We go, it's half time. It's literally right on half time. And that was the really annoying thing. We go in half time, still 1-0. We've got a really good chance still. Because even then, I still think, even when we conceded, you know, it looked like, you know, we were having half chances. We were testing the keeper a little bit, but not as much as maybe would have liked. We go in 2-0 down. It's a massive mountain to climb. Away from home as well. We all know our away record is appalling. And it's cost us. It's cost us in the end. And, you know, it's something we've really got to work on defensively because already we've conceded, 10 goals? I get we're trying to be more ruthless in attack. We're trying to play a bit more free-flowing football. And to a certain extent, it's worked really well for quite a lot of it as well. But it also comes with the cons of the fact that we're really struggling to defend at the minute, and a lot of attention needs to look at that. We pulled one back with Charles Burnham. Really nice finish from him. I've really been impressed with Charles this year. He's a player in which keep him fit, and that's a big if, because we know that he has a habit of breaking down. But keep him fit, he's easily one of the best wingers in this league. We know Chaz is his third stint at the club. Sorry, we know he can have quality in abundance. Not really sure his end product does lack at times, quite a lot, in fact, actually. But he's very capable of taking a man on. He's got a real good burst of pace. He's really good with the ball. It's a really nice second goal of the season. It's another one from outside the box. It's a really nice finish. But I think we didn't really especially when they went down to 10 either. We didn't really threaten enough. There wasn't really that urgency was sort of missing. I think some of our decision making was not great. And ultimately, just that little bit of a ruthless edge. I think on another day, I think we could have scored more than one. I think I don't think anyone could play. Not taking anything away from Chesterfield, but I've looked at both the Fleetwood and Notts County game. I mean, you looked at it. I mean, we probably didn't deserve anything from that. Yesterday, I feel we deserved at least a point, at the very least. I do question maybe we deserved all three, because even during that game, Chesterfield hit the woodwork a couple of times. But I definitely thought we was deserving of at least a point, and I think it would have been a fair result. We've just been let down by 2 mistakes. I think Jordan Wright has to take a lot of it on the chin. It's his third one. I think it's his third one. I do sort of let him off the Cheltenham one to make it 2-1, because it did take a slight nick. The Bradford one last week was poor, and I think this one was poor. And to be fair, for the rest of the game, he looked like a right bag of nerves. I'm questioning do we give Jake Eastwood a chance? He's an okay backup, but he's really nothing special, to be honest. He's someone I don't really rate, but he's proven that he can be all right. He's certainly much better. I think he's maybe struggling to get to the grips of trying to play out from the back a little bit. He didn't seem like that type of goalie. He didn't seem like that type of goalie when we brought him in. He definitely doesn't seem it now. But yeah, we've lost the game on 2 poor errors. That's all I can say, and it's basically disappointing. But I generally thought we played all right. As a performance, it was okay. There's positives to take from that. Look, a win for Chesterfield, another one for them. I think they needed that win at home. I mean, they've only had that one win, and that was that hammering that they had at Crewe. I think they needed another one, didn't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for them, it's a good result to just grind out. And again, they've had chances. Both sides did have quite a lot of chances in that game. It very easily could have gone either way. So there are still, defensive concerns. I'm a little concerned going forwards for them as well, actually, at the minute, because they're creating a lot of chances, not necessarily doing quite as much as they can. Maybe it's bad luck. So I feel like they've hit the woodwork in almost every time I watch them. They seem to have hit the woodwork at some point. It's just that those slight margins they need to be able to, it's the difference between a win, a loss, and a draw. And I think it will come for them. And obviously they were playing without Dunkley as well, which wouldn't have helped at the back. But I think there's more to come from them yet, I'd say.
Yeah, I think they have been unlucky with some of the chances and some of the goals that maybe they should have scored. But they'll get there. I've seen enough for them to suggest that once they sort of get that move going, they'll be a tough team to beat this year. But just a quick note on us, Jake. We did touch on last week about how much our home form would play a part. 4 straight wins in a row at home. We know that it's something that we've really wanted to work on. That's dating back to last season as well, with the 4 straight home wins. The away form's a different story. 3 defeats from 3 on the road, only 2 last year. What can we do? I feel like we've been to places we've been absolutely diabolical at some, but we've been to some in which probably we deserved a bit more. Like I said, I don't think we really deserved to win yesterday, but we definitely didn't deserve to lose. What can we do to sort of turn this away form round? I know it's easy for me to say, but it's something that I'm just not sure about.
Yeah, it's really difficult for Grimsby because it's the same issue of last season, which ended up making Grimsby finish really near the bottom. And if they want to improve on that, they've got to improve their away form, because just can't keep getting beat heavily away, or just not getting those final bit of luck to win games away. And you can't rely on home form for too much of the season. So I think once that first one comes, it should hopefully be a catalyst.
Yeah, I do think that we have improved in our away performances, but it's obviously not counting for results at all because we've lost our first three. But yeah, like I said yesterday, we really huffed and puffed, and we did deserve more from that. But I would be lying if I said it really wasn't a concern, because 2 wins away from home dating back to last season is quite frankly unacceptable. It's unacceptable for any level, and I think it's unacceptable for any club. So that's gotta quickly change. But yeah, I was deflated from that because I did feel we did deserve a little bit more than maybe what we got. We'll have a look at one more before we head to a break. I mean, Kieran's not here again, but it looked like quite a manic game at Newport County yesterday. Played Port Vale. On the face of it, a really dominant victory for Port Vale. Couple for Jaden Stockley, one of the best number 9s in this league if you play to his strengths, and that was certainly what they did yesterday. Ethan Chiswick and Lauren Tolai with the others. Aaron Wildig did equalise for Newport. It was an Anthony Glennon assist. It was a really good ball actually, but a couple of red cards for Newport. It said at one point on Flash Score they were down to 8 men, which was quite concerning. The first one from what's his name, Kieran Brennan. I'm not sure if that's a red card, to be honest. I'm not sure what you maybe think of that, but I don't know. He has retaliated, yes, but I don't think he's not been that aggressive, has he? I don't know.
I don't know. It's one of the. I can see why. Like, I can see why he's decided to give it that way, because but if we're going by the law, technically it is being aggressive, all the rest of it. But it is an opinionated thing, isn't it? As a lot of refs might be like, okay, maybe a bit harsh, or give yellow to both players, whatever, and just carry on. But obviously on this occasion, he's gone for the red, and I mean, the game was maybe gone by then anyway. But obviously by then, you go down to 10, and you're already 3 goals down. You're kind of done in at that point.
Yeah, I know that Kieran was very critical on the ref yesterday, but it did seem although I do sympathise a little bit of it, but I did feel like they sort of lost their heads a little bit. And I look at Jameson's red card, the way he's just booted it into the stands. I believe that's the little bit where they kept some Port Vale fans as well. With it being a second yellow, you can't really complain at that. It is a yellow card, but they ended up finishing with 9 men. I think Port Vale took the goals really well. I think that they dominated most of the game, really deserved to win. They've started a bit iffy. They won their first game. They've had some really poor results, but a 4-1 win away at Newport, who started the season pretty well. It could be the win that really could kickstart the season, could it?
Yeah, it could be a huge, huge impact on their season, just going forward and really getting that belief back among them after a tough season last season. So if they can build on it and just put in those performances consistently, I'm sure they'll fly up the table and really stay there and challenge.
Yeah, I think, like a lot of teams, a lot was expected of Port Vale this year with the calibre of manager they've got, the calibre of players with some of them with what they've got. Quite a lot of, I think a fair few of them probably should be playing in League One. Just trying to find their feet, and they'd needed that win yesterday. Some really nice finishes from Stockley in particular. But they took the other goals really well. To be fair, with Chiswick and Tola, like I said, I really like the signing of Tola. He did really well. I believe at Aldershot last year had a really good season for them. But a defeat for Newport. I think it was always going to be a tough ask to maybe keep this run going. I think they've sort of taken quite a few people by surprise quite early on. Had that opening day defeat, but have gone on to win their next 3, and have sort of just come crashing back down to earth a little bit with that. The referee debate is is for a different story. But yeah, another goal for Wildig, scored last week at Morecambe. But yeah, they've just got to just I think go again. I think it's probably the best way that they can maybe discuss. But I really want to know more Newport's fans on this because yeah, they've heard there was quite. Let's just say the referee was below poor. But I do want to know more, so I'll try and get that out of Kieran. But we'll head into a break. Still got 5 games to cover. We'll have a little bit more of a discussion near the end. I got a couple of questions of myself. I know that I've asked a couple of people on our Twitter for a couple, so I have a little bit of time at the end to do that. 5 more games to go. We will be back after this short break. And we're back. So a massive welcome back to everyone that's still here. Hope you are enjoying this so far. We'll look to our next game. I did want to touch on Notts County. You know, I think there was a lot of high hopes for Notts County this year. I think you know, with the squad that they already have, and you know, with the money they've spent, you know, with some of their signings, they've improved their main issue last year, which was defensively, which massively let them down last year. Even more so with their sort of Ferrari attack. That sounds really random, but you know what I mean. They had a star-studded attack, but they've obviously started life this season pretty strongly. 11 points picked up from 5 games, still unbeaten. Another win yesterday against a struggling Accrington Stanley side. We'll get to them. Another brace from David McGoldrick after getting one last week, to be fair, at Swindon. But it looks like McGoldrick's having his own goal of the season competition, would you say, with that first one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very, very similar to the 2 that he scored before last week. Yeah, very impressive goal. It shows the quality he's got. I do want to touch on the fact that why have Accrington let that happen, considering how they must have watched some of their Notts County's play before that game. How did they decide, oh, you know what? I see David McGoldrick in the exact same position he was where he scored 2 last week. Let's let him shoot, see what he does. What could go wrong?
I think it's also the fact I do feel that why was Jacob Bedia so high? I think to assist him, I think there's probably question marks. There's questions there to certainly be asked, but no, not taken away from the finish from Didty. It's a fantastic hit. And the second one's not too bad, but it looked like a really comfortable victory for Notts County. Probably could have been more. I think they dictate the flow of the game pretty well. A couple of chances for Accrington, but nothing really to stand out, so to speak. I think they had a disallowed goal from a corner, but I couldn't tell if it was deflected for McGoldrick's second or he's just hit that brilliantly. It just I did sort of looked at the keeper's maybe reaction. It sort of looked deflected, but I could be wrong there. I couldn't decide, to be honest. But yeah, I think for Notts County, I think their home form in particular will be key. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, they will not drop many points at Meadow Lane this year. Absolutely no chance. It is a really intimidating place to come. I think Stuart Maynard's really getting it right. Maybe a few question marks on him with sort of how Notts County finished the campaign, but they've started as probably what I'd expect, which is really strong. And that's also to point out that they were missing probably their 2 main players yesterday in Dan Crowley and Jody Jones. But that was no problem for them. But big problems, I guess, at maybe Accrington Stanley still without a win this season. Just the 2 points, just the 2 draws, 13 goals conceded. It's the most in the league. The second most is us, but we won't talk. No, never mind. Carlisle have conceded 11. No, ignore me. They're the second worst. So we're the third. Pin that on our open top bus. But no, definitely 5 games, 2 points. Concerning stuff, I think, for Accrington. Would you say?
Yeah, it's something we expected. Obviously, they had a lot of stability with John Coleman, and then letting him go towards the end of last season, and then having such a big overhaul. We knew it would take time to gel, but 13 goals conceded already, and it is a quite experienced defence and not very experienced attack, and it just seems like it's the other way around. So lots of concern over them. It'll take time to gel, but I just don't see where that first win's coming.
Yeah, I think it certainly looked like they lost some key players, some experienced players that have been there for quite a long time, and John Doolan's come in, and let's be honest, he's not really set the world alight, is he? If we're dating back to last season, we've seen that. If you've seen Andy Holt's Twitter, he's clearly still backing him. I think from that's sort of the message I get. I think maybe other than Kennedy, I think you maybe do have to look at him because this is dating back to last season as well, unlike with Kennedy at Swindon. And even then, even after last season, I think, their end to the season was not great. It was really not great. I sort of feared for them at the start of the campaign. And it's certainly looking at, they're in for a really tough time this season. That sacking of John Coleman, I think at the timing of it in particular I thought was ridiculous. The statement they put out at the time was even worse. For a club legend that's been there God knows how many years, won God knows how many promotions, and has really built Accrington from the World Cup. All for maybe Andy Holt's work as well, but he's been the driving force on the pitch. Replacing with John Dool, I'm just not sure on him. I'm just really not sure on John Dool. I do feel a little bit sorry for him. He has proven that. I think with Accrington this year, they can score goals. They have scored a fair few goals in their game so far, but defensively, they've conceded what? 3 to Tranmere, that was in the cup. 4 to Donny, they've conceded 3 to Harrogate, 3 to Newport, 1 to Colchester last week, which is not the worst. And then 2 at Notts County, which is on paper, you look at the other ones, not too bad actually, but I'm struggling to see where their win is coming from. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, if they're going to win, they've got Crewe next week. It's a huge game, absolutely huge. We'll get on to Crewe in a little bit, but it's a game in which they could have win. Pretty decent for the game coming up with Port Vale after that, and Wimbledon. I think that could be a really tough game as well. But yeah, I'm not really confident in their abilities at all at the minute, and I've always thought it'd be quite a long season ahead for them, and that's turned out to be the case. So, but a good win for Notts County continues there. Good run of fun to start the season. I did say we'd touch on Crewe, and we will. 1-0 win against Morecambe. Their early goal coming from the penalty, from the penalty spot. I think it was Kane Hemmings that took it and scored it. But I'll be honest, I looked at the penalty, struggling to see why. I initially thought, looking at it could have been a foul on the sort of like the left, just on the near the corner flag, and that it would have been really tough if that was the case. And then I saw it. I think it's probably given for handball. It's out a little bit, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure if it is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you saw that, and I'm not sure what you think of that. I'm just really not sure on it.
Got to be honest, didn't see the incident, so I can't comment on that as such. But just looking at the game in general, you got 2 poor sides there. I'm not convinced by either of them still. For me, that's a relegation 6-pointer right there at the minute. I know we said, oh yeah, Crewe, they'll be fine. I'm not necessarily so sure at the minute. They are not good at all.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit tad more promising for the fact that's now back-to-back victories for them after a really difficult start of the season. Jake, did you see the penalty incident?
Yeah, it's not been a great start, but we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago that Lee Bell could be in trouble, and he's turned it around slightly with 2 impressive wins, so he's just got to keep that consistency going and hopefully just pull them away.
Yeah, that's what they need to do. I think they just need to keep picking up some results there and there, and I think it'll be clear. I think he's got a little bit more credit in the bank to maybe compared to some of the other managers that we've mentioned. But no, I do like Lee Bell, and I really did hope that he turns it around. He's a really likable bloke, and he's clearly a good manager in there, just in maybe in a little bit of a difficult period to what they are doing. But it's a win for Crewe, and you can't really complain. For Morecambe, I do look at it. 5 games played, 5 defeats, 0 goals scored, 5 defeats. They've lost every game 1-0. But I did look at it yesterday. They did have chances. And on another day, I think they maybe could have taken something from that. Ultimately, the proof's in the pudding. They're still without a point. They're still without a win. They're still without a goal. But their look's got to change sooner rather than later, isn't it? With some of their performances, because I didn't think they were too bad against. Was it Newport the other week? I didn't think they were too bad. They're probably deserving of something. I'm not sure if you'd agree, but yeah, I know that their situation's clear. I don't think the squad's the best on paper, but I feel like the look's got to change at some point, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it does have to at some point, because you wouldn't expect anyone to finish a season on the same amount of points they started with. But something does have to change at some point. I'm sure they will get a result somewhere along the line. But I mean, the fact that these aren't thrashings is obviously a good start in comparison to the results they could have been a whole lot worse. But aside from, in terms of scoreline, is the way I'm trying to put it.
Yeah.
But they do have to get the points on the board, and at the minute, that's not happening.
Yeah, I just think it's not through the lack of trying. That's certainly not the case. Because like I said, I do feel like they've deserved more in the game. But I do feel like they massively lack that quality. Like I said, you look at that squad on paper is really not the best at all. Obviously, we know that their off-field issues are clear as well, but I mean, you've still got the experience of Derek Adams in there. You know that we have talked about a couple of Roberto Hart. I do back them at this rate. I do back them to get a win quicker than Atkinson and Stanley, weirdly enough. But that's just how it is. But look at it yesterday. Just disappointing. I think the manner, the way they've lost it yesterday, it's one that I'm really curious to know what you think. But I'm not 100% sure on that penalty at all. If I'm going to be honest, but taking nothing away from Crewe, they held out and they got that victory, which was important for them to build on their victory at Bromley last week. They sort of needed to back that up, and that's certainly something they have done. MK Dons, we all know that it's not been sort of the best of starts. I think is probably fair to say. With one victory in the of the first 4 games, losing the other 3. But the Dons won yesterday, beating Walsall 1-0, who have had a terrific start of the season themselves. Lovely goal in which they scored, contrary to what Roy Keane has said in the week. Which if you haven't listened to that, you've been living under a rock clearly. But a terrific goal to win the game. I think it's probably fair to say.
Oh, absolutely. That is entirely what this squad is about. Just straight from the back, the likes of Callum Tripp, our young academy lad, playing it back to the goalkeeper. Couple of passes, and we've suddenly got Gilby breaking through down the lines, outs in the main. Through ball for Liam Kelly, who's suddenly back and making up for his mistakes against Salford. Just basic running. We don't talk about that. But yeah, no, simple ball across, and Henry's there to finish. It was lovely move. And that's the sort of move we were pulling off all the time in pre-season, which is exactly why I was raving the entire time, saying, "Oh my god, we're going to score so many great goals this season," and that is obviously one of them. Perhaps a little concerning that we haven't then, taken the game to them, since we are at home. I get the Walsall have started well or whatever, but you still kind of want a statement win against a side that's better than Carlisle, and especially after losing to Salford. And for me, we should have been beating them. Sorry, Jake, but we should be beating your sort of side, I'm afraid.
There you go. You've heard it from Niels's mouth. But no, I think it certainly seemed a case of, terrific goal. Obviously, as I've mentioned, but both sides, I feel like both sides did have chances. A couple in there from Walsall, but quite a few for MK. I'm just looking at it on Flashgo, actually. They're saying that there was apparently only one shot in that game, which is just lies. There just wasn't. I don't know where they're getting that from, and they've clearly not updated that. But even now, I did watch the highlights from that. I think the MK did all right. Maybe could have scored another. I look at that move, I think, in the second half, in which I think the Walsall player was dispossessed. Couple of moves, and it's fine. One of your players on the left, and he's hit it straight to the keeper. Good save from him now. So that they're clearly getting there, I feel. But yeah, I think that win was important because I think, you'd look at it on the face of it, it's not been the best start. Certainly not you'd hope for a side in which were a lot of people's favourites to absolutely romp the league. I feel like it was a win that needed. Would you say?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like we've struggled like getting that sort of consistency, like just taking our chances. To be fair, I don't think it's necessarily been helped by injuries. I hate to use it as an excuse, but we haven't fielded the same 11 yet at any point this season. I think that's correct. We've had so many injuries. We've had two go off again with injuries this week. It would just be nice to see the same 11 playing, and I think that's maybe where we'd start to find that consistency and that rhythm a little bit easier. But hopefully that will come with a little bit more time.
You're not the only one complaining about injuries. Don't worry, we still got pretty much our full spine out. We won't have that. We won't have that for a while, but we started all right. Could be better, but yeah, that's for comes a discussion on that one. Jake, quick note on Walsall. Obviously started the season pretty well. I think it's taken quite a few by surprise actually. We know that the quality was there. We did maybe looked at their goal threat. Maybe they had, maybe they lacked the sort of in positions. I really like the pickup of Nathan Lowe. I think he's come in there, has made a big impact. Defeat yesterday, but certainly some promising sides they can take from their first 5 games, can't they?
Yeah, it's a better start than everyone expected. They've not conceded many and they've scored plenty, so they can build on it. We just need to see them a little bit more consistent than they were last season if they really want to mount a playoff push, but nothing to be concerned about. Really good start.
I do question if they've maybe got it in them, maybe to keep that consistency up. I'm not overly sure, but only time will really tell on that one. But you can't deny the start they've had. They've been pretty good. They've scored a few goals. They've won a few games. They've beaten some decent teams in there. And it only could be a positive to take forward. I think losing eventually to a side that are one of the favourites to win the league, I don't think there's any shame in that. But I think there's certainly some all right stuff they can maybe take from maybe yesterday and throughout the season as well from the other games. So I don't think all's lost from there. I don't think that it's the end of the world if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, it was a game that was more important to MK yesterday, and they got on the right end of that. God forbid if they'd have lost that. I mean, we'd have seen Luke crying more for one after the outburst on sort of Monday after losing at not Sutton, Salford. Sorry, Jay. I don't know where I'm getting that from. But no, there's that. Colchester, they drew 1-1 with Bromley. Bromley have had a decent start to life in League Two. Colchester sort of maybe a little bit slow going, but not the worst of starts. Bromley's goal was a penalty. Just really poor from Indolo, was it? Sort of just lost the ball and just tracked it back. He decided to foul his man in the box, in which you don't need a second invitation for Michael Cheek from 12 yards. He was a player that I've got really high praise for. Really nice penalty from him. And then, obviously, Colchester equalised second half. Aurora Edwards is a name that I've not heard for quite a while. Had a brief loan spell at us in the year we got relegated, in the season we got relegated. So, 2021? Young lad at the time from Bristol City, as it was. It looked like he can maybe do something just extremely raw, but a goal from him yesterday, I was really I completely didn't realise he was at Colchester, if I'm going to be honest. So he equalised. Lovely assist from Jack Payne, by the way. We know that he's got quality in abundance, as we've discussed about this on multiple times in the pod. Late red card for Topalo. I am completely butchering his name. For Bromley, not too many complaints. I think with the second yellow card there. Yeah, pretty solid, but I think Colchester had more of the chances, but it seemed like a pretty fair result. If I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure what you think.
Yeah, I'd say probably a fair result. I think Bromley will probably be the happier of the two sides, just about, especially because they're on the road, they're the new side in the EFL, all that stuff that I always end up mentioning whenever we cover them. I am a little bit disappointed in Colchester for not winning this sort of fixture. Like I said, I've expected big things of them, and obviously they've had a couple of strong games, including against us, but they haven't necessarily hit those heights just yet. And this is the sort of game I would have expected them to really run away with it, show their quality, and they've not really done that just yet. They have moments, but not sustained periods of dominance.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of change at Colchester over the summer, wasn't there? With Danny Carlisle, we all know his experience and how much of a good manager he is. And there's certainly been a lot of quality that's come in there. I think Colchester without Danny Cowley probably won't get those players, if I'm going to be honest. But I do think it takes a little bit of time. You did mention about the start. I think, could they maybe have picked up a few more points, perhaps? Is there room for improvement? Definitely. I think, I still think there's more to come from Colchester. I still think they will come good eventually. But, for one reason or another, it's not like they've been terrible. I mean, they picked up a few points here and there. It's certainly not been a worst start in the world, far from it. But I feel like that they've got another gear to hit yet. That's what I feel with Colchester, but still plenty of time to turn that around. But I think if you're Bromley, Jake, I think it's not been a bad start, has it? I think they've settled life in pretty quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, they've settled in really impressively, like everyone expected. Michael Cheek's scoring plenty of goals. He'll be disappointed to only have one yesterday because he had a really good chance that he didn't score. And they'll also be happy with a point because Colchester had 2 strong penalty appeals, which I don't really know how one of them wasn't at least given. I don't know if you saw them, but it's never a bad point against a side that are everyone's dark horses in the tip to do well. So definitely a point gained.
Yeah, I definitely say so. Colchester's not the easiest place to go to, I think, at the best of times, especially maybe under Danny Cowley, in which we'll probably see throughout the season. But you know what Bromley are going to be. They're going to be really quite strong defensively, but they've also got the quality. I can't believe it has taken this long for Michael Cheek to be an EFL striker. I've seen him a hell of a lot of times in the National League. He's always been incredibly consistent. I think for any EFL team, the fact that no one's perhaps taken a punt on him, and I don't know. It's either that or he's incredibly loyal to Bromley, in which is a different conversation or completely. But massive credit to him. He started to life really well, and if they're going to have a good season, I think they'll be relying on him. I think as their main sorts of goals, and you can't really complain. He just knows where the back of the net is. Really experienced front man, and I knew he wouldn't have any problem adapting his life in the EFL. Not a chance. He was more than capable of playing that division and has been for a number of years. But certainly seemed like more of a point gained for Bromley, I do feel. But like I say, I feel like Colchester still have another gear to go to. We'll get on to the final game. Just a couple of quick questions from now. I mean, we are pretty much there. But Cheltenham started. I mean, they won their first game, lost their next 3, and they beat Harrogate in the 90th minute in the last few minutes on a game in which, looking on it, lacked any real sort of quality until really out right at the end. That ball from Luke Young for the free kick, by the way, is unbelievable. A really good finish, a really good header from Bradbury as well. But it was a game in which, if it was a draw looking at it, I don't think anyone really could have complained. But Cheltenham snatching it at the end, halts a run of 3 straight defeats. Just feels like that was important, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it was Cheltenham that we were saying we just need to see them grind out a 1-0 win. This wasn't quite how we meant that, but it works. Whatever gets you across the line, it's. I think that clean sheet, especially, although Harrogate didn't necessarily have the quality to threaten them all that much, it's still a huge confidence booster at this stage of the season. Propels them up the table a little bit because obviously all the points are still quite close between all the teams at this stage. So it's an important 3 points, and I think they can be quite happy with that.
Yeah, better late than never there. But it was certainly important for them to stop the halt of 3 straight defeats, for them losing to Grimsby, AFC Wimbledon, and Walsall in their last 3 games. So it's sort of like it was important for them to pick up 3 points. But yeah, as I say, better late than never. But like I said, if it was a draw, I don't think you could really complain, could you, Jake?
No, they had plenty of chances to, take the lead, and then obviously it would have been pegged back. But they had plenty of chances throughout the game, and they'd probably be disappointed to leave with nothing after just conceding a set piece so late on is always heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think, I don't particularly like conceding from set pieces anyway, but to do it right to the end is definitely a bit of a sucker punch, so to speak. I still feel like there's a little bit more to come from Harrogate. I've talked so much on here how much I like Simon Weaver and how he can really set up his teams. I think they could maybe do a little bit more. I think going forward, they've not really had that much goal threat as such at the minute. I could be completely wrong, but other than the draw at Harrogate, I feel that I've been quite underwhelmed with their start. Actually, I didn't think. Like I said, I think Harrogate are just sort of said. I think they'd be all right, but I've never thought they'd be one to really pick up any trees. I think it's that's the impression I sort of get from them. But to lose late on, them losing it to Barrow last week, I think the manner they've lost that, I think they'll be really disappointed with. Because like I said, I think I don't think really anyone could have complained. It looked like a game in which I think lacked really any sort of quality from both teams until that free kick right at the end, in which, like I said, brilliant ball from Luke Young. I mean, I've got a lot of praise for him. He's a pretty good player. He's had a really good playing career at Wrexham as well. But I feel like that was important for Cheltenham with their run they've been on, and they've got a victory. Right, we've come to the end of the games, but got a few more minutes. So we've got a few questions. We did put it out on Twitter. I've got a couple myself. So we've got a few here. I think the first one, in fact, no, we'll save that one to last. But we touched on Swindon earlier on in the pod, and one of the questions that was brought up to me was, when should Swindon pull the trigger on Kennedy? I mean, I said there, if they don't sort it around very, very soon, I think he could be gone as quickly as next month. I'm not sure what you think.
Well, I'm just having a quick look at their next fixtures. You're looking at Newport, Carlisle, and Port Vale. I'd say at least the first 2 there are very, very winnable. If you don't pull off a decent return just from those 2 games, you're immediately under fire. I think potentially if they lose both of those and then the Port Vale game, that'll be it for me.
Jake, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I totally agree with Luke. If they get beat heavily in the next 2 games, then there'll be some strong questions asked of him, because it will be very concerning for them. Yeah,
I can't really argue with that. There's not really much more for me to add, but yeah, I agree wholly on that. Another one that's come in. What's your thoughts on the relegated side so far? So, obviously the 4 that came down: Port Vale, Fleetwood, Carlisle, and what was the other one? Cheltenham. I think Fleetwood have surprised me a little bit with how solid they've started. I think they've been the better team so far, although they've played a game less. Port Vale, I think, will come good. You'd like to think that win at Newport, as mentioned previously, hopefully will be that springboard to them to really kick on now. Cheltenham, bit hit and miss. I was never really overly massively convinced on their squad as it is. There's a few good players in there, but two wins, 3 defeats. Certainly room for improvement, but certainly the worst. But yeah, Carlisle have so far been awful. I think it's probably been fair to say, 5 games in, just the 1 win, 4 defeats, and without a manager. Not sure if it's any different to you two.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've summarised it pretty well there, to be fair. For me, Carlisle just not good at all. Cheltenham, inconsistent, leaning towards the bad side of that. Fleetwood, just very average. And then Port Vale, a work in progress, but you can see that there is something perhaps more to be done there that could propel them up towards the top end of the league.
Yeah, I completely agree. Carlisle have just been really, really bad. Fleetwood have been better than expected, but nothing incredible. Cheltenham have been sort of as you'd expect with such a big overhaul. And then Port Vale have showed plenty of promise. They just need to keep that going.
Yeah, not really. Again, not really much to really put with them. I mean, like I said, I think the next managerial appointment for Carlisle, I think, is big. Yeah, certainly some room. There's room for improvement for all the sides. But yeah, like I said, Fleetwood have took me by surprise slightly. Port Vale, I think, have another gear to go to now, and Cheltenham, not overly too sure at the minute, if I'm going to be honest. But time will tell on that one. Next one, GTFC final league positions of Grimsby Town. It's clearly one because you just know me. There was a lot of debate, especially amongst our fan base, but I think also in a wider sort of like League Two community of how we'd do this year. I mean, I did see a lot of predictions having us between 20th and 24th, if I'm going to be honest. But I'd like to think that we're better than that this year. I think the early signs have certainly proved that. I think it'll be a year of inconsistency. I think you're probably going to get that with this style. It is sort of a little bit like what we're trying to do at MK Dons, although I think they have some of the better players compared to ours. Although we have sort of made Kieran Green as the next Zinedine Zidane, which has just taken me by surprise. Shout out to him yesterday; he was terrific again. No, I don't think we'll be in any sort of relegation worry. I'd like to think not, anyway. I don't think we're quite good enough to make that step up. Maybe a playoff push. I think you're probably just looking at a mid-table finish. I mean, 13th. I think 13th to maybe 17th. I think is a realistic thing. I think is realistic. Not sure what you think. I feel like we could do something, but yeah. Once we get it right, I know we'd look good, and we'll win quite comfortably weeks. But yeah, I'd probably say 13th to 17th. I'm not sure what you think, but that's what I think we'll be. I think we'll be solid mid-table.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's fair enough. I think relegation is totally out of the question. To get relegated out of this league, you have to be beyond awful. So you should be fine on that front. I've said that with Artel before. He is a project manager. It's going to take time. There will be days where you are totally awful, and there will be days where you really take the game to the opposition and you look like the best team in the league.
Yeah.
So naturally, I think mid-table would be a good sort of it would be a good point of progress, I think, to then be able to build on. Because, like I said, these things do take time, especially when you're building that style of play. As long as there is that steady progression, you can be happy with it.
Yeah, I was going to say that sort of 13th to 16th range, just top of the bottom half. Just as long as they get the away forms sorted out soon, then there'll be absolutely no trouble with relegation.
Yeah, I think that's probably my concern at the minute. And like you said, there is going to be inconsistencies. So there'll be, there's times where we look really good and there'll be times where we look absolutely appalling. But it's going to happen. And, we are going to make mistakes. I mean, as we saw yesterday, there was certainly quite a lot to ponder, especially defensively. But going forward, I really trust our ability to score quite a few goals. And I've always been under the impression that we will hammer a few teams this year. We'll have some hammerings for sure. We're used to that. But I've certainly seen already from the 5 games this year, there's an identity and a style, and I'd like to think that'll get better over time, and I've got full faith. I think even more so with the victory against Bradford last week, I sort of took that in more solace, I guess, if that's probably the right saying for it. I sort of looked at it and suggested, right, okay, maybe we are on the right track here. Maybe sort of sit back a little bit and just see what happens. I think because first few games I wasn't really sure, but I think Bradford sort of swayed it for me. He's like, right, okay, let's give Dave Artel time. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I can't see us doing much better than that, to be honest. I'll be amazed, and like I said, I'll be amazed if we're anywhere near anywhere near relegation. I mean, anywhere near the playoffs. I wish that'd be the case, but I can't see it, if I'm going to be honest. Just a final one, but a little bit of I say tongue in cheek, but a little bit of laugh. What month are Donny being confirmed as champions? I'm not even going to answer this. I want to know.
What? No thanks. Thank you very much. You can have second. I don't care if you have second, but The Dons are winning the league. Thank you.
I just wanted to leave that because I wanted to get your reaction to that in particular, with you being MK.
Yeah, no, we're going up.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't happen because I don't think they're the strongest side in the league, but it wouldn't surprise me in a way. But hopefully someone else does.
Yeah, I think it's far too early to call. I think first and foremost for any sort of league win at this stage. But I mean, the start of the season has certainly maybe put them in that bracket. I mean, I think we sort of knew that at the start of the season. I really like Grant McCann. I really like the squad they've assembled this summer. And I think I did back him for a top 3 finish. Not so much league champions, but honestly, I don't think it's completely out of the question. I really don't think so. If it's anything from the start that, they could take a lot of positivity, a lot of promise from it. I think they're in for a really good year. I've always felt that, and I've always been confident in that. But yeah, still a long way to go. I think it's quite hard to just say far. I mean, we all thought MK would absolutely steamroll it, and they've not had the best of starts. If we're going to be honest, but yeah, I think it's far too early to maybe look at stuff like that. But no, they'll definitely be in the mix. I'm pretty confident in that with some of their players that they've got. Luke Molyneux in particular, he's absolutely wonderful. Should be playing in a high division, but just proves that what quality Donny do have, and yeah, they're in for a really exciting year. I can really feel it. I think we'll wrap it up there. That's all the questions that we're given. Really manic week for League Two, and that's with 2 less games on as well. Obviously, Jake had the pleasure of not watching a game this week, or displeasure, depending on how we judge the criteria. But we'll be back next week with a full fixture list. We're back again where Jake will be back losing again. I say that like you didn't lose against MK. You beat them. But yeah, make sure you go and follow our social medias at 4th Fever and the deck and all that sort of stuff. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Make sure you download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, so Spotify, Apple, or wherever this goes out to. And yeah, that's pretty much all from me. Any final thoughts from you two before we head off?
Not really. Just thank you for tuning in, and yeah, be sure to check us out when our next episode comes out as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and make sure if you watch on YouTube to give us a comment on your thoughts on how your team got on this weekend, and hopefully you'll come back next week.
Yeah, same with Twitter as well. I mean, there's a lot of debate. I mean, I am never calling it X. I don't care. Elon can absolutely just shove it. It'll always be Twitter for me, and I've always been under that impression. To be fair, there was quickly just on. I mean, it was at uni. I mean, we had my mate, and we'd sort of had this thing saying that with our lecturers, it's a big boo if they called it X in any way, shape, or form. But we sort of did cheer when Twitter was mentioned. So yeah, this was not needed, but I thought that was pretty cool, and I sort of enjoyed that. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Make sure you go and follow, like, comment, all that sort of stuff. Download. We really appreciate it. We do appreciate your support. Listening to us every week. Talk, just us rambling on. And yeah, that's all from me. That's all from everyone else. We'll catch you again next week. Until then, take care.